What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Well MD. I'm here with my buddy Jeffrey, and we have a whole lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to the college football world. And I'm excited to break it down with my boy Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. Appreciate you for having me on. I mean, you talk about the coaches. I mean, $75 million buyouts, getting fired after 11 games and whatnot. And then you talk about the results themselves. There's a lot to get into. It's going to be awesome.
First thing that we have to start out with, Jimbo Fisher. Man, I wasn't sure if it was going to work at A&M at the beginning because I'm like, okay, it kind of looked like it was falling apart at Florida State. But I'm like, hey, A&M, they have a lot of money, so maybe they can do enough for him to be able to get over the line. He never even friggin' got close. I mean, yeah, the COVID season was good, but it was the COVID season. I mean, he had a good team, but still, never more than 10 wins at A&M. Complete flop for Jimbo at A&M. Somehow he gets $72 million. People used to make fun of Charlie Weiss's $19 million buyout back in 2010. This makes it look like a bargain to get rid of him. What are your thoughts on this, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I made a short on it yesterday, and I made the video last week talking about is it over for Jimbo, which it ended up being correct, perfectly timed. But yeah, I've definitely said my thoughts a lot on it. But basically, when you talk about it was going downhill at Florida State, I thought it was because of Francois' injury. And I didn't know that it was Jimbo Fisher's coaching ability going down or whatever. But he did really good there. But obviously, he was taken over from the legendary Bowden, at head coach there. And so that kind of, made some people think that, well, it's kind of like with Wisconsin where some of their coaches after Alvarez that just they had success, but it's because they were following it up. And that he really didn't do a great job. Again, we don't really know for sure, but I thought when Jimbo got hired that it was good because he had more money, he had more resources, and he goes over to Texas A&M. The problem is the SEC is too many good teams. The ACC, you've got a couple you got to compete with every year. In the SEC, it's 5, 6, 7 teams. And even though they got all the money in the world, talent alone just sometimes isn't enough of an advantage. You have to have the coaching edge. You have to have development edge. Everything has to be better than your counterparts, your other programs in the conference. If not, you're not going to be able to win games. And you saw that to your point, Will, that you made the other night when you said that, they were not developing, they were not doing good enough. And that's the way it is. So they had a lot of talent that was left, untapped, and they kept going 8-4 every year. In the 2020 year, you throw it out the window because a lot of teams did better, than like Indiana and some programs like that normally don't do as well. So it is what it is. I just think it stinks the 75 million. However, whatever the final number, 72, 77 million, whatever it is, it's a lot of money that's just being used for nothing, going to a guy that they fired that's not even working for that money. I mean, they should have never given him the contract extension. And like you said, it's only going to get worse from here because there's going to be even bigger contracts in the future and then teams getting rid of guys. So, I mean, there'll probably be $100 million buyout eventually. It is what it is, but Fisher just didn't get it done. And that's A&M's fault for giving him the extension.
They better freaking get Urban like that. Like to pay that much money, they better freaking get someone good. They better get someone that works right away, and they immediately are able to compete like blow for blow with whoever wins the SEC. Like for that much money for that buyout, man.
Urban and A&M just seems like a perfect fit. Absolutely. Yeah. Like you can't even really think of anybody else that would make more sense, but I don't know if it's just memes or it's actually going to happen. So I don't really know. That's why I didn't really talk about it in my short because I'm like, is it for real? Like, is it actually a legitimate, candidacy? Is Urban Meyer, actually considering it or would A&M consider him? I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, you talk about like Jack says, Lanning, Elko. I mean, you got to make sure that the guy you're hiring is better than the guy that you got rid of for $70+ million. To your point, Will, you have to make sure that the next coach is a slam dunk. Like a guy like Mike Elko, for a lot of schools, is not a bad hire at all. But he's coached at Duke in the ACC with not as much talent. And you could say, well, at a bigger school with more talent, he'll do better. But again, you're going to be competing with Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, all these teams. Can he do that? Are you going to pay a guy after you just fired a guy for $75 million? So your point, that's why Urban kind of makes sense, because he's a slam dunk hire. But is it legit? I don't know.
Well, they better be ready for that first game next season, because they got my Irish first game week 1. So they better be ready, because the Irish aren't going to be happy with how bad they did this year. So hopefully it works out. Will Arnett should have never hired him in the first place. This guy was not qualified to be a head coach in the SEC. And he ruined their offense. He ruined their season. Why was this guy hired in the first place? What was the AD thinking at Mississippi State?
Man, I mean, I think possibly it was one of those deals where you talk about with, Mike Leach's passing, and, rest in peace to him, like I always say. It's just so sad with that. Still terrible for, for Mississippi State and for Mike Leach overall, obviously. But the thing is that they had to hire somebody. They had to get somebody for the bowl game. I think what they should have done was just given him the interim label, right? That's what they should have done, because basically it felt like an internship. This was not a legitimate, head coach, position that was filled. Arnett did not fill the position like, I'm the new coach, I'm going to be the guy for the next few years. Because if you're going to fire him after 11 games, he was never your head coach. You never believed he was your head coach. But if that's the case, then why did you just not let him be the intern for the bowl game and then hire someone else? I mean, Mississippi State's a good program. Obviously, they're behind the A&Ms, the Alabamas when it comes to money. But they've got money. They've got some standing in the conference. And why hire him? Why just promote him like that? I mean, because to Jackson's point, he wrote in my comment section, his buyout was low. So, I mean, it's not like Mississippi State's really losing anything like A&M is. But still, it just feels like a wasted year. Will Rogers never got to do anything this season because the air raid offense died. And they were trying to run the football, which you're not going to run the football on some of the better teams in the SEC. So it was abysmal. Their defense, Arnett was a defensive coordinator at Mississippi State. Their defense wasn't that great except the Arkansas game. And I don't know. It never worked. And now Mississippi State's having to, actually hire a legitimate guy. And it just feels like a wasted year at a time when you can't waste years because all this movement going on, these teams being added to your conference, you could fall behind quickly. Mississippi State could become one of the worst programs in the SEC if they don't get this next hire right, because things are changing rapidly and there's going to be a lot of competition in the SEC.
Well, I heard possibly from a good friend that there may be some AD turnover and such, but still, felt like they still could have done better. Mike Yurcich, gone from Penn State. Man, he was bad at Penn State with that talent. It reminded me possibly even worse job than Tommy Rees did at Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was very vanilla of an offense. And I mean, you look at the Ohio State game, they played good defense. They kept themselves in the game, and Penn State's offense didn't do anything at all. And then in the fourth quarter, they gave up that final touchdown that Ohio State got to 20 points because it was basically Ohio State was stuck at 13 all game. And then they scored that last touchdown late to win. Still the game. And it's like that game right there is a microcosm of how close Penn State actually is from being the top of the conference, being at the top. The defense is there. They've got the talent, but their offensive play calling in that game was vanilla. It was conservative. That's not going to get wins. And then against Michigan, they were competitive, but didn't win and didn't score enough. And if you want to win big games in 2023 in modern college football, you got to score 28, 30 points. Can't score 15 and 12 in big games and win. So yeah, it makes sense, but it shows you how close Penn State is, though.
I mean, with a 5-star quarterback like Drew Aller in there, man, you got to do better than that. And it'll be interesting to see how well they do with Jawan Sider, their interim OC. I heard from some channels that this guy's a really good offensive mind. So it'll be interesting to see if they do really well in the bowl game. Maybe he could be the full-time. We'll see.
Yeah, 'cause that's basically all Penn State is playing for
Yeah.
now, is to get better for next season because they lost those 2 big games every year. It's Michigan and Ohio State. You got to beat them. You don't beat them, well, we did it again. We're not elite. We're really good, but we're not elite. So now Penn State's just auditioning for next year.
All right, let's take a look at some of the games from this past week.
Oh, yeah, there was some crazy results for sure. Can't wait to get into it. Obviously, the Maction. I mean, we didn't even really know who to pick in any of these games, so I don't know. And then you look at Wednesday, Toledo won. I mean, that's expected. Miami, Ohio, they're again not a bad team. And Bowling Green with Connor Bazelak beat Kent State. You're right, Will. They're absolutely terrible. So that's, I guess, it for Maction. Louisville survived a scare. A scare. If Austin's here, I'm not saying Louisville's regressed. They're not a good team, but this shows you though the difference between Louisville and some of the better teams in college football, like the teams ahead of them in the top 10. Louisville's not on that level yet. They're good, but a team like Michigan or Georgia or Alabama would have floored Virginia. Wouldn't even have been a close game at all. That's why Carolina, when they lost to Virginia, I knew Carolina wasn't legit. Louisville's good, but this game shouldn't have been this close.
Congrats to the Cardinals, though. I do believe that they're in the ACC championship game now. But I don't know, man. I mean, Florida State hasn't looked great either, but we'll see if they can compete in the title game.
If Florida State plays the way they did against Boston College and Louisville plays the way they did against Notre Dame, Louisville can win the game. But a performance like this for Louisville against Virginia will not get them a win against Florida State. So it will be interesting to see for sure. And UNLV, did you pick Wyoming or did you pick UNLV? I can't remember.
I believe I picked UNLV because Wyoming on the road is not the same at home. They're the Utah of the Mountain West.
Jackson picked Wyoming. That's it. That's the hit. I couldn't remember who. I knew someone did, but me and you went UNLV. He went Wyoming. But yeah, Wyoming on the road is not a great team. At home, they're good. They're like Utah. Like you said, I think you said it before. You said Utah is always good at home. On the road, not so much. And Wyoming, same thing. So good win for Barry Odom. They're having a good year. Now on to Saturday. Ohio State did what everyone expected. They floored Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State, they might be the worst team right now. Well, actually, no. Pitt's worse. Pitt is worse. Pitt is
I remember when you said it was Mississippi State, and then they beat Arkansas. That was funny. But who knows? They're all pretty bad.
Yeah. Georgia looked impressive against Ole Miss. So did their team that they'll face in the SEC West in the title game. Both of them looked good.
Yeah, I expected Alabama to beat Kentucky fairly easily. I just didn't think that was going to be close. Kentucky is not on Alabama or Georgia's level. They just aren't, capable of hanging with teams like that unless a team like Alabama just plays poorly. But Alabama did not. But this game here, I was not expecting this one to be as big of a blowout. Georgia, I never in my mind even considered picking Ole Miss. There was never like a moment like during, the day when I'm thinking about, picking these games where I was like, okay, can Ole Miss win? Yeah, I think so. No, I didn't think that. I never did. I thought Georgia would win probably I don't know what I said, but like 10-14, somewhere in there, maybe 17. I can't remember exactly what I said, but this game was terrible. If, you wanted a competitive football game. If you're a Georgia fan, it was one of the greatest games you could have ever witnessed because now the pendulum shifted. You talk about a couple weeks ago, Michigan's the best team in college football. They're the most dominant team. And then you got all this stuff with Harbaugh and everything. And now you got Georgia doing this. And now you see people saying that Georgia's the best team again. So,
we'll see.
So we'll see. It was one game, but this was very impressive for Georgia. Brock
Bowers is back, and he's back in the end zone. So Georgia back to being 100% healthy. They're going to be scary for anyone.
100%. It's going to make it tougher for Alabama in the SEC championship game when and more than likely if they face. So it's going to be wild there, but Georgia definitely looking good. Michigan, Penn State, it was a game that was pretty predictable. I mean, Penn State played tough. They did exactly what they did against Ohio State. They were never out of the game, but they never allowed themselves a chance to win the game. And then that's why you said the offensive coordinator just got fired. Michigan, I mean, they didn't look great in this game. I don't know if that had anything to do with Harbaugh not being out there or not. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But for Michigan fans, they got the win. That's all that matters, in their playoff quest and Big Ten title chances.
It's crazy that they only ran the ball in the second half.
Yeah, it's crazy. But definitely Michigan got the win, and, it was expected. Florida State, Miami, I think a lot of Miami fans, they were probably happy with this result. They didn't get destroyed like last season. Florida State, this is just another game, though, that you just look at them and you're like, they're not as good as these other teams.
No.
They're not.
This is 2014 all over again.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they barely won. I mean, if this team is legitimately, by far the best team in the ACC and on Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan as well, they should have won this game by like 20 to 25 points, somewhere in that range. Like, this is a game that they allow Miami to believe they could win. And Miami's been struggling lately. They're like 6-4 now. I mean, It's a rivalry game, and as people always say, when you're playing these type of games, the records don't matter. And still, a win is a win. Florida State won, but I just don't think Florida State is as good as those other teams. I mean, there's an argument Washington's better. There's an argument.
And there's an argument that if Miami's quarterback never got injured, they could have tied the game.
Yeah, they're not wrong as well. Yeah, I forgot his name, but the backup guy, he played pretty well, and he got injured. I remember seeing that.
What's his name? Oh, I can't remember.
I forgot. I can look real quick. I forgot.
Yeah, can you click on the game and look?
Okay.
Tyler Van Turnover came over and, of course, turned the ball over. And the game over.
He definitely has lost the Tyler Van Dimes, man. It's been rough for sure.
Emery Williams.
There he is. I mean, look at his stats, though. 8 of 23 for 175 and 2 touchdowns. And they still were close. And then you look at Travis, 19, 31, 265, and a touchdown. I mean, it's not great. I mean, you definitely, in the middle of this game, Florida State's odds of winning were kind of in the 60s. It was a close game for a little bit.
Yeah, they were down 13-10 at one point.
So, yeah, it's crazy. What did you think about Washington, though, beating Utah? I mean, I would have thought they would have won this game by a little more. I know that some people are like, well, it's Utah. They're a good defensive team. But it was at Washington. And again, this is the issue with the Huskies. Their defense is not championship caliber. And that, to me, is going to be what potentially holds them back from having a shot of winning it all. If they had a good defense, I think this is a championship team. The offense is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Penix had a good game against a stingy defense. But their defense of Washington's giving up 28 to a team with no quarterback that's playing well, with no rising. I just think this is a game that shows that Florida State and Washington, though, again, are not on the top 3 team level. But they won.
Yeah, survive and advance, and hopefully, and they have another big game I can't wait to talk about next week.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that game as well to talk about. It's going to be awesome. This next game, though, I was really happy with this result, though, because I remember everybody was like, Oregon's going to score 50. I think my final score prediction for this game was 38-28. Oregon, 38-28. That was about on the nose.
Right on the nose.
Because there was like 56 to like 40 or whatever, 35. I remember that. I was like 38-20. I was actually surprised it was close. It was kind of lucky, but there was a little bit of defense. I don't think it was poor offense, but Oregon being held to 36, USC only had 27, so that was crazy. But Oregon, like you said, with the other 2 teams, survived and advanced.
Yeah, Bo Nix put up 400 yards in this game. Caleb Williams did Caleb Williams things. It was a fun game.
Yeah, and it was kind of nice to see it not be in the 40s and 50s. I mean, those games are fun, but you want to see some defensive stops, some punts and whatever. But yeah, Caleb Williams did play well. I do feel bad for him. I mean, his team's 7-4. And I mean, if he was on any other top team, they'd be either undefeated or have 1 loss. Like, there's no way that he should be on a 4-loss team. It is what it is, though. His defense on his team just hasn't gotten the job done. But yeah, Oregon still in the playoff race in the Pac-12 title race. It was a good game. This game right here, another example, though. These 3 teams, Washington, Florida State, Texas. I mean, technically Oregon as well, but they did win by 9. They didn't really feel as much in doubt as the others. But Texas, though, barely winning at TCU. A win is a win, but this is not a championship team. You cannot beat TCU by 3. A team is below 500 and expect to people to think that you're a title contender. They are not. They're a Big 12 title contender, but they're not a playoff national title contender. This is not the case. Ewers returned too, and they just did not get it done in this game. They won, but they should have won this game by more.
I'll give Texas this.
Mm-hmm.
TCU was 8-4 against them since they've joined the Big 12. So TCU does kind of have some sort of hoodoo over the Longhorns. So
I get that, but TCU, beat Texas in a lot of those years that the Longhorns were not very good. This is supposed to be a better Texas team. You talk about all those teams at Texas that went 7-5, 8-4, and TCU won. Those were impressive wins, but this Texas team is 7th in the country. They beat Alabama on the road, and they're supposed to be a title contender, and that's why it's not as impressive to me. You're right. I mean, there is such a thing as a team that has your number. It's true, and there's been a lot of teams that do that, but this still wasn't very impressive. But they won. Yes. Alabama, very impressive, like we already mentioned. They floored Kentucky. I don't think I had Alabama winning by this much. I think I had them winning by like 20 or something like that, but this was a great performance from Alabama. They dominated them, and really Kentucky only scored a little bit when the game was over.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The tide keeps on rolling. They've looked better as of late. We'll see if they can keep it up.
Yeah, this game right here, Oregon State and Stanford, was just a bloodbath. Stanford is not competing at all. I mean, they got that win over Colorado. I mean, that was it. But with every passing week, that looks less impressive because Colorado just keeps losing. So Oregon State, it's a shame they couldn't beat Arizona. I mean, I'm glad for Arizona. I really am. And really, it's a shame, to be honest. I'll take that back. It's a shame Oregon State didn't beat Washington State and Arizona because Oregon State is this close to being undefeated. And obviously, they would not be, in my mind, like they'd be like Washington and Florida State, where I'm like, they're not as good as Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, or even Alabama. They're just not as good as those teams. But this team could be undefeated. They should be undefeated. I mean, I don't know what happened to Washington State. They've collapsed. And then Arizona, they're doing good. They're playing good football this year as the season's gone on. But Oregon State lost by 3 to both teams, and they're ranked number 12. But this game here shows you they're still really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if that defense that came back, that left last year came back, I think they could be a title contender. But unfortunately, the defense isn't as good this year for the Beavs.
Yeah, and they just don't replace talent like Alabama and Georgia and all those type of programs. This game right here, I'm so glad I picked Missouri. Oh, man. Jackson picked Tennessee. I thought about it, too. I was like, Tennessee, more talent. What happened here? Is Missouri this good? Or is Tennessee this bad? Like, what happened here?
Missouri's good, man. Oh, what's up, Hummus? Thanks for coming in, my friend.
Appreciate it.
But Missouri, I think Missouri might be the truth. I mean, they got outscored by LSU. They lost a close game against Georgia. They were able to run it on Georgia. If a team's able to run it on Georgia, I call them legit. That passes the legit test for me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, this is what they saw. They're like, Texas A&M was like, dang, Jimbo lost this crappy Tennessee team. Yeah, he's got to go. It was the last straw. So, yeah, Aggie fans can thank Mizzou for Jimbo leaving.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's just, to me, this result, though, just shocked me because I thought this would be like a one-score game. I thought it'd be like 35-28 either way, whoever won. But no, this game was ugly. And Tennessee is definitely not one of the best teams in the SEC. They're good. They're like the baseline for a good team this year. They're good, but only because they have a lot of talent. They're not really good in principle, though. And Missouri actually is proving to be good. And they could make a New Year's Six bowl game. It's awesome for the Tigers. It was a really shocking win. But I will say that the game that shocked me even more was this. UCF, Oklahoma State. Letdown. Okay, I've heard a letdown, but a letdown is Oklahoma State losing this game 35-31. 45-3? 45-3. After you beat Oklahoma, you lose 45-3 to the UCF team, the same team that blew it against Baylor. How? They barely beat Cincinnati. They won like 28-26 versus Cincinnati, a team that hadn't won a Big 12 game yet. and Oklahoma State loses like this. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on this one, but wow.
What the heck happened? What the heck happened, man? I'm like, John Rice Plumlee looked like a Heisman Trophy winner. Like, he looked that good against Oklahoma State. I don't know what I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't even really know what to say about this game. All I know is I saw UCF up big. It was like 31-3, and I was like, what is going on? And then I checked it at the end. It was 45-3. I didn't see any of the game, but yeah, definitely a shock for me. I was not expecting this result, but it is what it is for the Cowboys. Still getting that win over Oklahoma is huge, but wow, just a massive letdown.
Jackson, I would say Maryland for the Big Ten. And for the Pac, I can't think of one either. Maybe UCLA. UCLA for the Pac. UCLA for the Pac.
It would have been Washington State if they were alternating wins, losses, but they just started good and have just played bad since. So they're not – Jekyll and Hyde is when you 1 week play good, next week play bad, and it's all over the place. So, yeah, UCLA is a possible answer for sure. I agree with that.
I would say also Washington State is the Syracuse of the Pac.
Yeah. Yeah, remember Jackson, Kentucky was the Syracuse of the SEC. That cracked me up. I mean, Kentucky's still better than Syracuse, but I know what he means for sure. What happened here also, Will, Kansas. Kansas is legit. Kansas is really good. You lose to Tech. You're giving Tech a chance to make a bowl game. Like, I picked against Kansas a couple times. Like, I picked against them in the BYU game, and I picked against them in the Oklahoma game, and I got burned there. But I picked Kansas. I was like, I'm going Jayhawks. They've looked good. You lose to Tech at home.
What the heck?
This is not a good loss.
Is just crazy. The Big 12 is just a crazy conference. Mm-hmm. Now, this was not my best pick. I did pick West Virginia to beat Oklahoma, and it was a bad pick, man. It was a bad pick.
Keep in mind that Oklahoma lost to Oklahoma State, who lost to UCF 45-3. But then Oklahoma turns around and just floors West Virginia. So, again, these teams just cannot play consistent football, good or bad. It's impossible. I mean, Jekyll and Hyde, you could almost say the entire conference is at this point. Even Texas to an extent, because sometimes Texas has games where they blow you out, and then other games they're barely beat TCU. So really every team is just inconsistent. I mean, it was a good performance for Oklahoma, but why didn't they play like this against the Cowboys? If they had to play like this against the Cowboys, they wouldn't have lost that game. Yeah. Or the Kansas game. Crazy.
Who knows? Well, do you think Jayden Daniels is going to win the Heisman?
It's possible. He's putting up insane stats. The only thing that could hurt him is because they have several losses. I know Lamar Jackson won, that year when they had 5 losses at Louisville. So, I mean, it's not unheard of. But, I mean, he's getting to the point, though, where his stats are looking kind of crazy. He's putting up big numbers. Michael Penix, Bo Nix, they still have big arguments. And if one of those teams, if Washington goes undefeated, wins the Pac, I mean, Penix is going to have a big argument. But Jayden Daniels is playing great football, and it's definitely not his fault why they have 3 losses. LSU is a pretty good football team. Their offense is great. Their defense is struggle like USC's, UNC's, and other teams. But, yeah, he's playing well, and you could be right. Florida, I mean, they could score on a bad defense, but they can't stop anybody either. So, yeah, the Gators look like they're going 5-7.
Good luck beating Missouri Gators. Good luck. Yeah. Or Florida State. I mean, Florida State could, they can play down to competition too. So and it's at home. So that's
I was a bit disappointed with Arizona in this one, though.
At least they didn't lose.
They didn't lose, but Colorado has been bad lately, and you barely win. I know it was in Boulder, but I don't know. I was not impressed with this performance. I wanted Arizona to win this game by at least 14, 10-14. I think I picked them to win by 13, something like that. It is what it is. They won. A lot of other teams did not, but they could have done better in this one.
Mm-hmm. Iowa did Iowa things.
Rutgers often. This is why I didn't pick Rutgers. I know Jackson picked Rutgers. to take that upset. But the reason I didn't is because Iowa's defense is already good. Rutgers' offense is not. So if you have a bad offense playing a top defense, how are they going to score? I didn't know they were going to get blanked, but this is why I didn't pick them. If Rutgers' offense was one of the better offenses in the Big Ten, I would have probably picked them to win. But they can't score that well on anybody. And when you're playing a team like Iowa, you're not going to score well at all, and they didn't. So this game is pretty predictable. And it was still the under. 29.5 under, and it was 22 points.
Tulane's been scraping by.
Tulane's not very good. Tyjae Spears is the difference. Tyjae Spears last year took so much pressure off of Michael Pratt. He's gone, and Michael Pratt's having to do more on his own. Tulane's just not as good. They barely beat ECU 13-10, and then they barely beat Tulsa. And Tulsa and ECU are not very good teams.
Yeah. They still might win the American.
Maybe. They got to play better, though.
UTSA, man. UTSA might steal it from them.
Yeah, UTSA playing better. Definitely, you talk about Zachary Franklin being gone at Ole Miss. It's made it a lot harder on Frank Harris, just like Tyjae Spears being gone at Tulane. But UTSA has been playing better lately. I've noticed that, so you never know. But the Green Wave, they have a shot to make the Cotton Bowl again, but they can't blow it against anybody.
I think Liberty should make it ahead of them, the way that they're playing, the way that they're playing, and the way that Tulane's playing.
I wish James Madison would get the ability to play in a bowl game. I wish they'd give it to him. I mean, they're playing better than anybody for the most part, and they're not even qualified to be ranked in the CFP. It's insane, but it is what it is. But yeah, maybe Liberty, Tulane, you never know. But yeah, North Carolina beat Duke in double overtime. I mean, this was the microcosm for the Tar Heels this year. Great offense, bad defense. I mean, Duke's offense has been terrible. Louisville blanked Duke because Riley Leonard was injured. He couldn't really do anything in that game. And I know that helped Louisville because a lot of people saw that game and immediately thought Louisville's legitimate. They're top 10. That game, I watched that game, and Riley Leonard was hurt. He was not healthy. That was not the fact that Louisville's defense is otherworldly. It was the fact that he couldn't do anything. Duke's offense sputtered. Well, now you've got, backup quarterback in that's healthy, and that's better than an injured starter. But this just shows you North Carolina's defense stinks because Duke only scored, was it like 24 on Wake Forest? Mm-hmm. And then here they score 45. And I know it was in double overtime, so there were less points in regulation, but still, UNC, this is why they couldn't win the ACC or be able to have a shot at the playoff. I mean, they could be undefeated right now. If they didn't blow it against Virginia and Georgia Tech, they'd be undefeated, ranked like 8th right now or 7th possibly. They were 10th when they lost to Virginia. So the voters were pretty high on them, but they blew it. And it's not Drake May's fault. Did he play as well as he did last year? No, but it's not his fault. The defense blew it for him in this game. Even though they won, it was just a terrible performance by the defense. They should have won this game by a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Baylor's not very good. Kansas State is. That's really all we got to
say. Baylor is one of the biggest, fallers of any team that I've seen in the last couple of years. You talk about what Dave Aranda was doing there and how well they were playing. I mean, he was like my top 10, one of my top 10 highest, coaches that I was high on, like favorites. I mean, he was doing such a great job. And now it's just collapsed. They're 3-7, I think. They're bad. I mean, they're barely better than Cincinnati, and that's even debatable sometimes. They're not good at all. It stinks. Good bounce back for K-State, though, after the loss to Texas. Yeah, Army won. They beat Holy Cross.
They beat Holy Cross. Holy Cross doesn't give out scholarships, so they're all walking. They beat a team of walk-ons.
Mm-hmm. Indiana, this game, worst time in the world to give up 662 yards of offense to Illinois. Indiana has never given up that many yards of offense in the Tom Allen era. You talk about they've played Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, all these years, and you've never given up that many yards in a game until this game. The bowl eligibility is on the line. And you want to know something? Indiana had their best offensive performance of the entire season. They scored 45 points. Brendan Sorsby threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Indiana was running the football, something they never do. Indiana looked good. They have like 500 yards of offense in their own right. But you give up 660 yards of offense, and you give up 48 points and you'll lose. And now you're no longer bowl eligible unless you get lucky with going 5-7 and they give it to you with the APR score or whatever. But how if this defense had have just given up 550 yards of offense, they'd have won the game, because Indiana did benefit from some Illinois turnovers. But I don't know. It stinks. Indiana finally played a good offensive game and you lose.
This game was crazy, man.
Is what it is. I mean, good job for Illinois. They got the win. They went away from the bowl. But yeah, Indiana's not a terrible team. And you look at who they've lost to. I mean, this is probably their worst loss. I mean, Rutgers is not terrible. They lost to them. They lost to Maryland. They lost to Louisville. They lost to Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. I mean, those are all good teams. And then they lose this one by 3. I mean, every guy that they've lost to is not bad. So it is what it is. Just a byproduct of playing a tough schedule. And Indiana's just not good enough.
The ghost of Scott Frost still haunts Lincoln, Nebraska and Memorial Stadium.
Why can't Nebraska get bowl eligible? You could have done it against Michigan State. You could have done it against Maryland, and you can't do it. You give Maryland bowl eligibility. Well, like Maryland couldn't do anything anymore. And Nebraska gives them a win on their own field. My thing is being a Nebraska fan, those crazy diehard, they love their team fans out there in Nebraska. They go to all those games, and they just see loss after loss after loss. How did they put up with this? It's sad. I feel for them. Every year, they do the same thing to lose to this. Maryland. 20 years ago, Maryland and Nebraska were like this, and now Nebraska's under Maryland. This should never happen.
Maryland was actually good. Maryland in the early 2000s with Ralph Reachin, they had 2 back-to-back 10-win seasons. All right,
30 years ago, it was like this.
30 years ago, it was like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 30.
It's just
30 years ago.
It's just sick though. I don't understand how they lose this game. I think I picked Nebraska. I don't remember who you picked, but yeah,
I don't know who I picked. I think I picked Did I pick Maryland? Oh no,
I don't remember.
I don't remember. South Carolina Bandy stinks. I feel bad for
Mike Wright. Transferring was a problem. He went to Mississippi State, and that hurt because his scrambling ability helped Vanderbilt, surprise a couple of those teams last year, like Florida, Kentucky, the underachievers. And this year, their quarterback play is bad. They have no scrambling ability. They're getting sacked left and right. It just looks like old Vanderbilt, not James Franklin, but after that and before. It's terrible. And, yeah, they needed Mike Wright to stay. He left probably because of NIL. Because, I mean, he went to Mississippi State to be a backup. Will Rogers will start, but now Mike Wright's been in, and he's been doing okay, even though Mississippi State is not good. But that's why they're not very good. This is what I'm talking about, Will. Boston College is not good. Do you see what I'm saying? If Indiana and Boston College squared off, I really believe that Indiana is a better team. Even if they didn't win the game, I think Indiana's better. Boston College stinks. They are the worst bowl-eligible football team ever. And I'm sorry for Boston College fans. I have nothing against your team, and I'm glad that Jeff Hafley is quote-unquote saving his job, but they're not good. You look at their wins. UConn by 3. Army by 3. Holy Cross by 3. They're horrible. The only good win was Georgia Tech because Tech flopped after beating a team because they're the Jekyll and Hyde of the ACC, unless you want to say it's Miami. Boston College is overrated. They're not good. And this win right here, go Hokies. Because you proved that this team stinks, and Indiana should get the bowl slot over Boston College if Indiana goes 5-7. Not fair. Boston College is not good.
Oh man,
it's true. No, Jason Oakley, Boston College would torch it. Holy, how? You really believe this, Jason? Indiana is in a better conference, and they hung with Louisville. They hung with Illinois. I know Illinois is not great, but Boston College barely beat Holy Cross, Army, and UConn, and Syracuse. I mean, it took 4 picks from the Syracuse quarterback and only 37 passing yards for Boston College to win that game by 7. No, Boston College not good. The record is fooling people. Trust me, it's fooling people.
Can we look at Boston College's last 2 games? Let's see what they got. Let's see if they can get to 7 wins.
All right.
Are they playing Pitt?
Computer trying to pull up. Oh, man. Just come on, computer. Give me a minute. It's going slow. I got it at Boston College. I had to hit the score instead of Boston College itself. All right. Where is it? There it is.
They're going to
All right. They got at Pitt and Miami.
They're going to beat Pitt. They're going to get to 7 wins.
Look at this schedule, Jason. They lost to Northern Illinois. They beat Holy Cross by 3. The Florida State game, Florida State played terrible. They got blitzed by Louisville. They barely beat Virginia by 3. They beat Army by 3. Georgia Tech played terrible. They beat UConn by 3. They beat Syracuse by 7. 4 picks. If Indiana got 4 picks from an opponent, they would score more than 17. And then Virginia Tech, they get destroyed by 26 to a below 500 at the time Virginia Tech team. Is Virginia Tech 5-5 now? Or are they still under 500? I can't remember.
5-5.
But still, regardless, I don't know. I'm just saying in general that Boston College is not great. I mean, Jason, if you think Boston College is better than Indiana, that's cool. It doesn't matter. But the point is both teams are not great. I just think Indiana being in a better conference and being competitive against actual football teams is more impressive than what Boston College has done. Beating Army, UConn, and Holy Cross. Think about if they lost those games, Jason. If they lost those games, instead of being 6-4, they would be 3-7. They're not going to be ranked in the CFP. Even if they beat Pitt and Miami, they're not going to rank them at 8-4. The CFP rankings would probably have them at like 45th. They wouldn't even have them close. But for real, Will, what if they lost those 3 games? Seriously. If they lost to Holy Cross, Army, and UConn, what do you think? What do you think people would think about Boston College?
They stink.
Yeah. I mean, do you believe, Will, that Indiana would have lost to those 3 teams?
Probably not.
I don't think so. Especially now. You could make an argument.
I mean, they almost lost to Akron, though.
But see, that was with Taven Jackson. And that was with an old offensive coordinator. They got rid of the coordinator, and they got Sorsby.
If they would have played them at that time, they would have had that coordinator.
I understand that, but I'm just saying in general, that's why it's not fair to look at a team and say that when they lost those games matters. I understand that Boston College has technically been playing better than them, but if Boston College was good, they wouldn't have lost this game 48-22. Virginia Tech's not great.
I mean, Kyron Jones is good, but
48-22.
How many yards did he have?
Okay, I'm gonna look real quick. 219, and he had 135 on the ground. And Castellanos, look at this, Jason. 10 of 20 for 110 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks, while Indiana's quarterback threw for 360 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. Who's better? Okay. Boston College is not good. I think Castellanos could be better, like you said, Will, if he was on a better team. But, I just don't think Boston College – their record is why people think they're any good. Clemson beat Georgia Tech, and it just shows you yet again that Georgia Tech is all over the place. Sometimes they look okay, and other times they don't. But Clemson's talent advantage just finally showed up. And, I mean, Clemson's 6-4, and Boston College is 6-4. The difference between Clemson and Boston College is insane. It's absolutely insane. Jay said, "I'm just kidding, Jared. I despise BC. Always have super easy game. I just get it. I like getting at him on this kind of stuff. Though. It's like the A&M being the best 5-7 team. There's like a few things that I stick on, and like Boston College being not good is one of those things this year. So you're good, Jason. I'm just having fun. And Indiana, they're not good, but Indiana is comparable to BC and could be better. Could be. James Madison won again, but no one cares in the CFP committee. NC State, they broke the curse. The curse has been lifted. The CW curse is no more. The favorite won here, 26-6. We all were wrong. That's why I said at the end that we could be wrong. We could be wrong.
I'm excited to see NC State's next game against Virginia Tech. I think that'll be a good game.
Yeah, it should be a good game for sure. I actually thought Wake would win, though, because of the curse. I mean, it's been happening all year long, but I knew it eventually would break. I mean, obviously, you look at, the way that it's been happening. A lot of those teams that did lose that were favorites just weren't that great to begin with. Louisville's a good team. That was the exception with the Pitt loss. But other than, North Carolina proved to not be as good. A lot of teams did. So it was a funny thing for a while, and maybe it will happen some more. But yeah, the CW curse definitely ended. It's crazy. Purdue beat Minnesota. Minnesota giving up 4. What happened to Minnesota's defense?
I don't know, man.
49 to Purdue. I mean, 49 to Purdue. This year's Purdue. This isn't Jeff Brom Purdue. And even when Jeff Brom was at Purdue, Minnesota never gave him that much.
What's going on at Wisconsin?
Yeah, this is just to make Indiana's win over the Badgers not look good. Oh, Indiana didn't beat a good team because Northwestern beat it. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Badgers. They're really struggling right now. I think the injuries, though. To be fair, they're injured. They're not healthy. But the West, the Big Ten West is like the Big 12. You can't predict it. It's impossible to predict. Syracuse beat Pitt. Syracuse finally won an ACC game. And this team, this is how bad the ACC is, Jason. Syracuse is 1 win away from bowl eligibility.
So it's going to be them and it's going to be them and Georgia Tech, right? This
Look at what Syracuse done. They beat Colgate, Western Michigan, Purdue, and then they beat Army, then lost to Clemson, UNC, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and Boston College. And all those games they got blitzed in except BC. And then they beat Pitt. And all they have left is this: Georgia Tech and Wake.
If they win one of those games, they are bowl eligible.
But they don't deserve bowl eligibility. I mean, to me, this is the exact reason when I say that 6 wins does not qualify you as a good team, though. You should not make a bowl game just because you got 6 wins if you're terrible. Absolutely abysmal. Traveling Fools is here. Appreciate you for being here, Traveling Fools. Jay says Pitt is terrible. I mean, they are, but how'd they beat Louisville then, Jason? How'd they beat Louisville? Doesn't make any sense.
It's so bad,
Coastal
man.
beat Texas State. That was a good win for Coastal. Coastal's playing better.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn, Florida, Arkansas, 48-10. Didn't Arkansas fire their offensive coordinator?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't help.
It worked for 1 week against Florida.
Yeah, but that's Florida, though. We're talking about Florida. Our Arkansas and Auburn, man, this game, it's supposed to be 2 teams that are comparable here. Auburn, Florida. I mean, this was ugly. So, Traveling Fool says Miami's actually really good. They're just pretending to suck.
They are better this year.
They're better than BC and Syracuse and Georgia Tech.
They're going to play final rivalry week, Miami, BC.
Man, don't lose, Miami. Do not lose to Boston College. And I know I said they're better than Georgia Tech. They are better than Georgia Tech, even though they lost. They are better. But they're a better team. Cal, Washington State. Washington State has degraded harder than any football team I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
You beat Oregon State, and then you just collapse. And they can't beat anybody. They've lost to Stanford. Stanford and Cal would have gotten Washington State bowl eligible. Stanford and Cal would have got them to 6 wins. They were already at 4. What happened? Cam Ward.
This is the worst. This is the worst collapse I've seen since Florida and Dan Mullins last year.
Yeah, this is sad. I mean, I hate it for Cam Ward. I mean, it's unbelievable. I would have never expected after they beat Oregon State to do this. Jason says there are a million bowl games, so 6 wins will get you into one. I'm surprised that it bothers so many people. 6-win teams have played in bowl. It's not about that, Jason, because I understand to your point, but what I'm saying is it's who you play. If you are a 5-7 team and you play a top 10 hard schedule like Indiana does every year, and that doesn't even mean Indiana's going to win the last 2 games, just an example. But Indiana plays a top 10 toughest schedule every year. You look at Boston College and Syracuse's schedules, and they have one of the 10 easiest Power 5 schedules in college football. Who is better? The 6-6 team that played nobody, beat nobody good, or the 5-7 team that had one of the top 10 hardest schedules? To me, I think that the 5-7 team should get the bowl game. It don't work that way because if you look at basketball, I don't know if you watch basketball, Jason, but there's a lot of teams that have great record. You remember that one year, Will, where NC State had a great record? They were like 24-9 or something like that, and they missed the tournament because they didn't play nobody. And then you saw another team that was like 18-14. It was Alabama. They went 18-14, 18-15, and they got in the tournament because they had like one of the toughest 5 schedules in the country. That's fair to me. I think that's fair. And I know that football's different, but 6 wins bowl, it's just not comparable if you have an easy schedule like BC. What if BC was in the Big Ten? I get it, Jason. It's opinion. Your opinion, BC's better than Indiana. My opinion is they both stink, but Indiana's probably better. That's just my opinion. Both teams are bad. I'm not saying Indiana's good. I'm just saying if Indiana was in the ACC and had BC schedule, they'd probably be the same record as Boston College. That's all I'm saying. It is what it is, though.
Some athletic directors do this, man. Like they just make their schedule like easy, so all these coaches have to do is the bare minimum and make a bowl, and the fans will be happy.
If I was talking to Mark Rogers right now, I don't know if he would agree with me, but he would understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a valid point because anybody that looks at Boston College's schedule and sees who they've beaten knows they're not great and how they've won them. I mean, they didn't blow out Army, UConn, Holy Cross. They barely won, and then they're barely, beating Syracuse, who's terrible, and then they lose to Virginia Tech by 26. I have had to tell a lot of people because they would look at teams like that and think they're good. They're just not, but that's just my opinion. It is what it is. ECU beat Florida Atlantic. That's a shock. Second win for them. Cincinnati. I didn't even see it. So when I said Cincinnati hasn't won a Big 12 game, my bad. Take that back. I did not see this. They did, in fact, win a Big 12 game against Dana Holgerson. Has to be finished right now.
Go get him out. Get him
There's
out.
no way he can survive this. You lost to Cincinnati at home. You gave the Bearcats their first Big 12 win. Unbelievable. I didn't even see this. Wow. Insane. And for BM, Buckeye Mike, if he's here, Marshall beat Georgia Southern. They're back in the win column. 1 win away from bowl eligibility, I think.
Mm-hmm.
A&M. And see, I don't know what you thought about this, Will, but the fact that they fired Jimbo Fisher a couple days after they beat Mississippi State 51-10, or the day after. It's not my bad. Day after. 51-10. You beat Mississippi State and you fire him. What a time to fire. It's kind of like when they gave Gus Malzahn that contract extension right after he got blitzed and then lost that Baylor game. It's like it's a bad time to give an extension. Here it's like, why fire him after this performance? Why didn't you fire him after the Tennessee game? At least it would have aesthetically looked better. You fired him after one of their best performances of his whole tenure. Unbelievable.
UCLA, what the heck happened?
Ooh, I didn't see this either. I missed a lot. I was really busy this past weekend, so I didn't see any of these results. I didn't see some of Arizona State beat UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
How? Thought UCLA was decent. Is Dante Moore injured or did they bench him?
They benched him.
They benched him. Garbers hasn't been better though. He hasn't.
I think I don't think Garber. I think they played the third quarterback in this game.
Well, that's why they didn't win. Let's look at the stats real quick. So we got a little extra time. Let's see. Well, what did he do? This is terrible. Ooh, 117 in the entire game. That's it. And their leading rusher was 51 yards on 3 carries. What in the world? Absolutely abysmal. Arizona State. Didn't Utah score 55 on them? And UCLA loses at home. Unbelievable. That's actually a really bad loss there. Terrible loss. Boise State looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Beat New Mexico. Iowa State. Iowa State on the road. I went BYU, I think. Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, terrible beat there. BYU at home is usually good, but, man, Iowa State. And they lost last week, too. And then they bounced back. Can't predict the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Fresno
what
got
happened
blitzed.
here? I didn't even see this result. Fresno lost to San Jose 42-18. San Jose's been awful this year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Did Mikey Keene play? Oh man, this is insane. Wow. No, it was 5.
No.
11-21, 115, touchdown a pick. So that didn't help at all. But man, at Fresno, that's a bad loss. And then to round out, Hawaii, Air Force.
What happened,
Air
Army Force?
broke them. Air Force was the darling of the group of 5. And now you lose to Hawaii. I mean, this is not the Hawaii of old. Hawaii is not very good this year. And they got beat by 2 touchdowns. So that's crazy there. Some crazy results in college football this week. Definitely a lot of results that did not go the way that me, you, or anybody really anticipated. But now we got another week. We've got another week of college football, some more predictions to make, and we're starting out with
Toledo
action.
Bowling
Decent
Green's
game.
a good game. Toledo Bowling Green's
Yes,
a good game.
actually a decent game.
Mm-hmm.
Toledo, they only have the 1 loss still to Illinois. And Bowling Green, I think they're 6-4. They're bowl eligible. They're a decent team. It's on the road. Connor Bazelak's been playing a bit better lately. Could Bowling Green get the upset? I don't know. I mean, they're not terrible. I watched them last week for Kent State, but it's Kent State. Toledo, again, only lost to Illinois. They've looked better all year. I'll go with Toledo to win.
Yeah, I'll go
31.
Toledo 27-13.
Bowling Green could make it slightly interesting, but I do think Toledo will win. I don't think you know anything about the other 2 games.
No.
Yeah, me neither, really. Wednesday, Miami, Ohio probably should win.
Yeah.
They've been pretty good.
Oh,
I don't really know about the other game.
Thursday.
Boston College at Pittsburgh on ESPN at 7 o'clock. Boston College is 6-4, the worst 6-win team in college football in the Power 5. Definitely, there's absolutely no argument, I would think, for that. But someone will find another team that's worse, I would think, probably. But Boston College is not a good team. They're going on the road to Heinz Field to face the team that beat Louisville. That's basically what Pitt's been known as this year. I'm going to let you pick first, Will.
BC wins big. Pitt's just that bad.
You're actually going with Boston College.
38-10 BC.
I want to go Pitt. I want to go Pitt really bad here, man. I don't know. It could go either way for me. Let's look at the spread for this, because the spread's going to dictate a lot for me. Let's see. Pitt is favored. Pitt, 2.5, right there. That proves it. Pittsburgh, 21, Boston College, 17. I'm going Pittsburgh. They're going to beat Boston College and prove that the Eagles are not good. They're bowl eligible, but they're not good. I'm going Pittsburgh. Could regret that, but we'll see. Friday night football, UTSA should beat South Florida, I would think. They're definitely better than them.
Oh, God.
And then you got Friday night, Colorado at Washington State. 2 teams on the line for bowl eligibility. Colorado's 4-6. Washington State's 4-6. What a collapse by both teams. Colorado started 3-0, and they've been terrible since. Washington State 4-0 with a win over Oregon State. They've been terrible since. I don't even know what to do here. Both teams
This is crazy.
They got a good quarterback. You got Shadur Sanders and you got Cam Ward, and nothing else is going right for either team outside of that Travis Hunter for Colorado as well. But I'm going to let you pick this one first as well, Will. I don't know.
Wacky matchups on Thursday and Friday night. Holy crap. You know what? Colorado's been playing better, so I'm going to go with the Buffaloes to win 45-42 in Pullman.
That's a good pick. I mean, I don't blame you at all. I'm going to look at the spread for this one as well. Washington State is favored by 4.5 points right there. So the odds makers are high on the home team, and they're favored by more than the 3-point spread that's normally, when they say a pick 'em, because the 3 points is usually the difference, is what they say for the home field advantage. So they're high on Washington State. I don't know how, for the way they've been playing lately. But the problem is that Washington State, they have Washington to end the year. So the Cougars, even if they win this game, their shot of making a bowl is not very good.
Whereas Colorado has Utah.
That's, I would think, easier. But still, going to be tough because Utah's defense is so good and Colorado's offensive line is so bad that you would think neither team has a shot. So really this game's irrelevant if you look at it from that point of view, that the team that they play after this gives them no chance to make a bowl game. But Deion Sanders, I mean, his energy's been there, but it's definitely regressed since the beginning of the season. Cowboy hat, the chain, everything was going right for them. They were all over television. I mean, it's so funny, too, because I was watching NFL, and they had on Fox, and they had an advertisement for this game. Colorado and Deion Sanders faces Washington State on the road. Watch at 10:30 on FS1. And I'm like, you're still trying here. It's not the hype we were getting earlier in the year where it's like, it's the biggest game of the year against USC. It's must-watch TV. It's not as big as that anymore, but they're still trying to hype up Colorado. And I don't blame them. I mean, I'm glad that they're not as bad as last year, but I said it once and I'll say it again. If Colorado did not have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter,
they would be as bad as they were last year.
Basically either 1-11 or maybe winless. They'd be that bad because they almost lost to Colorado State. They almost lost to TCU. I know they beat Nebraska, but that was with Jeff Sims. They won comfortably there, but I don't know. Colorado's collapsed. If Washington State had just won the Stanford and Cal games, I would have picked them easily. If they were 6-4 and they had the win over Stanford and Cal, there's no way I'd be picking Colorado. But Colorado almost beat Arizona, whereas Washington State's losing to Stanford and Cal. I guess I'll go with Deion and Colorado to win 28-27. I think they'll pull it out with a touchdown in the end by Shedeur Sanders. It might not mean anything for either team if they both lose next week, whoever wins this game. But Washington State's been so bad. Hate it for Cam Ward. He's putting up good stats, but I think Colorado will win.
Yep.
To move on to Saturday, you've got Michigan at Maryland. I mean, this is a game that shouldn't be close. Maryland's been weird before, though, but they usually do it against the Buckeyes. They've had a couple close games with them. Michigan doesn't have Harbaugh, presumably, even though there is a lot going on there where he's actually trying to get back on the field. He wants to be back for that Ohio State game. He's literally pleading his case. It's all over the place with that. But I do think Michigan will win even without him. If more likely he's on the sideline. Shouldn't be. I wouldn't think. So I'll go with Michigan to beat Maryland 35-14.
Now, I don't know. I have a feeling that usually Maryland and Ohio State play bad before they play each other. Usually it's that week before.
That's a good point.
Dating back to like Woody and Bo days, usually one of them's trying to compete for a national championship and then they lose like Minnesota or something the week before the game.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I forgot. I mean, I didn't forget about that, but Maryland's been so bad though.
So I'm going to say that Maryland keeps it competitive. I'm going to say 27-24 Michigan.
You could be right. I mean, if it's a close game, I wouldn't be surprised because you're all right about that. They are normally close. But, I mean, that's their own fault, though. I mean, all you got to do, you're supposed to, as players, not look at it. I know the game means it all. But if you blow it the week before, then you can't do that. You have to treat every game like it's important. Michigan has a massive talent advantage on Maryland. This game should not be close. I mean, they're probably favored by an insane amount. So, even though that you take into account the fact that they normally, like you said, will play teams close the week before, they're favored by 19.
Yeah.
They should win this game by at least 17. I said 35-14. But that's the thing, though. I mean, you look at the fact that, like you said, they don't normally play well before, or it could be close, but it shouldn't be. So, I don't know. That's going to be interesting to monitor for sure. I have Michigan winning regardless, even if my score prediction's off, because it could be close. Alabama's not going to be close in this one against Chattanooga. This is going to be 56-7, not close.
Neither should Ole Miss, UL Monroe.
Yeah, the week before the final week of the regular season is always kind of devoid of good SEC matches for the most part because you got all these duds. I mean, I know that you have the easy game before your rival and everything, but why? I mean, these games are terrible. I know that it helps these smaller schools because they get a lot of money playing these games, which is good for their programs. It's awesome and stuff, but these games just aesthetically aren't good, and no one watches them unless you're a fan of the team. Ole Miss is going to floor UL Monroe, too. I know they just lost to Georgia, but this is not going to – I know UL Monroe beat Alabama 2-07, but it's not going to be close. I'll go 49-7 on that one.
Yeah. I think they beat Arkansas one year to UL Monroe. They slayed another SEC giant in like the past 5 years.
Which beating Arkansas is not as impressive as beating Alabama, but still, obviously, the talent advantage is massive. So still impressive to your point. But it shouldn't be close. Rutgers at Penn State. This is a game that Penn State's defense should get them the win. I mean, as long as Penn State doesn't play poorly because now they're eliminated from the playoff, they're eliminated from the Big Ten title race. As long as Penn State just plays focused and, is playing for a New Year's Six bowl like last year, they should win because their defense, if they play hard, they're going to shut Rutgers down on offense, just like Iowa did. If Penn State's defense plays poorly, it could be close, but I do think Penn State will win this game 31 to I'll go with 10. I don't think it's going to be close. I don't think Rutgers is going to score a lot.
I'll go 24-0 Penn State.
I'm looking forward to this one, actually, on ABC at noon. Louisville at Miami. This game's weird because Miami, the backup quarterback, was playing well to an extent.
Well, he was a highly rated freshman coming in. So
he was playing well to an extent, but then he got injured. And then Tyler Van Dyke has been throwing picks everywhere. I still don't think he's healthy. Who's going to play at quarterback for Miami is going to be, key.
Well, the new that freshman's out for the year.
Oh, so he's out for the year. So it's going to be Van Dyke, right? So, I mean, that kind of makes you think upset's less likely. But the thing is, I just don't think Louisville's a type of team, though, that they don't have enough depth and talent. Traveling fools. They don't have enough depth and talent to put Miami away easily. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, but Louisville's not Clemson. I know Clemson lost, but they're not talent-wise on the level of Clemson or Florida State. Louisville's not as talented. So they have to play well to win a game like this. They have to actually give a good effort. You can't be, Michigan or Ohio State before playing each other and give a D- effort and get by. This isn't how it works. Louisville has to actually give a B- to B level game to win here. I don't know. I think Louisville will win because of the fact they have a lot to play for. Obviously they're technically still in the fringes of the college football playoff race and the ACC title race. Obviously they're going to get there. They should. So Louisville has stuff to play for. Miami really doesn't. They're already bowl eligible. They don't really have anything else going for them. I do think Louisville will win at Miami 28-24, but I think it's going to be a really close game, and Louisville doesn't have the talent advantage to put Miami away. I think Van Dyke's going to make too many mistakes, and that's what's going to prevent Miami from winning this one, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by Louisville at all.
Yeah, I feel like Miami might quit. I have a bad feeling Miami's going to quit. So I'm going to go – I hope for your sake, Traveling Fool, if that's a good game. But I'm going to go 34 to 10 Louisville.
Gonna be interesting. I mean, I hope it's a good game, for you Traveling Fools and just in general. I want all these games to be close. I mean, even teams that I like when they're in competitive games and if they win, it's awesome and stuff. But you like seeing close competitive football games, so it should be interesting. Oklahoma at BYU. Jackson says it's going to look fun.
Well, BYU better play better than they did against Iowa State, or it won't be. If you
look at BYU, I want to show you because we have not looked at this, Will, at all this season. We've kind of looked more at Boston College, just how bad they've been. But look at BYU this season. Look how up and down they've been. Okay, they won their first game, Sam Houston 14-0. Then they beat SUU 41-16. They beat Arkansas, lost to Kansas, beat Cincinnati. This result here, 44-11 loss to TCU. It's just insane. And then they beat Texas Tech, lose to Texas, lose to West Virginia, and lose to Iowa State. Like, they've been all over the place. But, lately they've played poorly. But will they bounce back? Because, early on they had a couple decent wins, like Texas Tech, Arkansas, but then they just collapsed here. So, I don't know. I mean, if BYU plays the way they have the last 3 weeks, there's no way this game's going to be close. But the Big 12's the Big 12. And since Oklahoma, is a brand and everything, BYU might play competitively. But you do see the way BYU played against Texas. They were not competitive there either. Oklahoma, I don't trust them at all because they've been inconsistent, but I will go with Oklahoma to beat BYU 35-17. If BYU is more consistent and playing better football lately, I would probably go with the upset, but I just don't see it because they haven't played very well.
Mm-hmm. DF, I'm sorry that I'm now dead to you. I hope I can come back to life at some point. But yeah, the Sooners, they should win. They should be able to take care of business against Provo. So I'm gonna go 38-24 Sooners. Jeffrey's having some technical difficulties.
I'm here. I was just listening to you. Yeah, you talk about, your score prediction in mind. We don't have really Oklahoma blowing them out big. Jason thinks so. But, BYU's really been struggling lately, so it should be interesting. Tulane. Could they drop this game?
They only lost that one game to Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm. But they barely beat ECU, and they barely won last week against Tulsa.
Well, Florida Atlantic lost to ECU last week.
I know. That's true. Again, that is definitely true, but just Tulane's looking rough. I'll go with Tulane to win 28-20, but they haven't looked good lately.
Yeah, I'll maybe they'll look a little better. I'll go 31-17.
Should be interesting. Coastal Carolina at Army.
Our Coastal should win.
Yeah, and Grayson McCall is out for the season, too. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he's actually out. And the backup quarterback, Ethan Vasco, he's actually been running the football pretty well. He had a 75-yard touchdown run a couple of weeks ago. So Coastal is getting by with Tim Beck as coach. With no Chadwell, they're still doing pretty well. And Army's been struggling. Army, though, they had that one win. Do you remember who it was that Army beat? They beat somebody.
Air Force.
Air Force, that's it. But didn't they beat someone else? They beat Air
Holy
Force.
Cross, too.
Let me look at Army. I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was Holy Cross and Air Force.
Yeah, they beat Holy Cross.
And then they beat
UTSA. And UTSA. That's it.
Delaware State.
They beat Air Force and UTSA. So they got a couple good wins. So it's possible. You never know. Army could do it again, but I will go with Coastal to beat Army 31-21.
I'll go 17-7, just because Army always keeps these games low scoring, unless of course when they're playing LSU.
Yeah, when they played UTSA, that was a 37-29 game. So that was crazy with that one. So we'll see. It could be low scoring, but definitely Army is a team that you just never know what you're going to get. Michigan State at Indiana. This is a game that no one's probably going to care about because neither team can make a bowl game. They're both 3-7, and Indiana's at home. The only thing that you have here is that Indiana is they have the old brass spittoon from last year. They have it because they won at Michigan State in the snow with Dexter Williams at quarterback. I see Jason's prediction of 42-6. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility for sure. Let's see what the spread is for this game. Let's see what
I think it's going to be Indiana -3. Okay.
Indiana is favored by 4. Thank you, odds makers, for understanding that Indiana is a capable football team. Indiana is not horrible, contrary to popular belief. They are 3-7, and they've had a lot of problems, but they've been playing better football lately. Michigan State, they're a team that's just had some bad performances. If they didn't beat Nebraska, then I don't think anybody would believe Michigan State would win this game. And to be fair, if Indiana had to be Wisconsin, I don't really think anybody would be saying much about Indiana either. But seriously, though, Michigan State has been that bad. Indiana has been too, but Indiana's played better to me against better opponents than Michigan State. I mean, you got to remember, Indiana was competitive against Penn State. They were very competitive against Penn State. They lost by 9, and I know they blew the game, but they were competitive. And even against Louisville, they were competitive. Yeah, Jason, they're bad. Michigan State is really bad with the Mel Tucker situation and the fallout. And they've had quarterback controversies with tons of different quarterbacks that has not been working out. They have not looked good. Their defense has been pretty porous. I'm going to go with Indiana to beat Michigan State 28-21. I feel like even though they have nothing left to play for, they have the spittoon. I feel like they're going to want to keep the spittoon. And if they go 5-7, you're still technically not eliminated if things can break your way in the APR score. So, and Tom Allen needs this. Tom Allen needs wins like this to save his job, because if he loses and goes 3-9 this year against Michigan State and Purdue, even if they keep him next year to let the buyout go down, he's going to lose any bit of, confidence and hope in the fan base that's left. So a game like this is very important, even if, to most people it's not going to really matter. I think Indiana's going to get it done. I think they're going to find a way. But, Michigan State, they have some talent. They've been bad, but I think Indiana will pull it out.
Yeah, I was thinking the same wave as you, Jeffrey. I'm going 28-24 Hoosiers.
Mm-hmm. Should be a good close game. I mean, neither team's good, but it should be a good game in the respect that it's close. And I do still feel like Indiana is not terrible. If you saw Donovan McCulley lately, Donovan McCulley had a really good one-handed catch against Wisconsin. And again, last week against Illinois, he caught like 130 yards receiving. So definitely Donovan McCulley is turning some heads. And I don't know if he'll be an NFL guy or not in the future, but he's looked really good the last couple of weeks at receiver. So Indiana's got some talent. Aaron Casey's a really good middle linebacker that should be playing on Sundays. He's moving up draft boards. So there is some talent there with Indiana, and I think they'll get a win. It should be, like I said, a decent game, but hopefully, the Hoosiers will not throw in the towel.
Can you scroll over to the right a little bit? I just want to see which Big Ten channel it's on.
Yeah, you go back up to the games: Fox, Michigan, Maryland, Rutgers, Penn State, FS1, Louisville, Miami, ABC, Oklahoma, BYU, ESPN, Michigan State, Indiana.
It says they're both Big Ten networks. So that's the way I get confused about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy there. Sometimes the Big Ten network does that. They put double games, and some people can get both, some people don't. It's weird. Purdue Northwestern is, I don't know, 3-7.
They both won last week.
Purdue's 3-7, and what's Northwestern's? Right? Are they 4-6? Or are they 5-5? 5-5. Northwestern's 5-5, which again, it's the West, but still, Purdue's favored by 1.5, which is crazy somehow. But Northwestern is 1 win away from bowl eligibility, and I think that will be a motivator. I'm going to go with Northwestern to beat Purdue 28-27. I think it'll be a close game. I think Northwestern pulled out.
Yeah, I'll go Northwestern 45 to 35.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy though. I didn't even know Northwestern had 5 wins. That's wild. Texas A&M and Abilene Christian. They'll win. A&M will win. I'll go 34-7.
I'm gonna go 20. I want to go 28-27. I think
a 1-point win for A&M. Oh man, at that point you might as well just lose. I mean, come on. Oh man, that's crazy. ECU at Navy on ESPN News, the rare ESPN News game. I didn't even know that channel will still have programming. The Pirates, they won last week. I don't know what Navy's record is. It's hard to keep up with all the records.
I think they're like 3-7.
Navy is 4-5. ECU's favored.
Okay.
And I actually have to tell you about Navy's favored, but ECU's favored in the FPI, ESPN Analytics, but Navy's favored on the spread. Yeah. I don't know. This is close. I'll just go with Navy, I guess, 17-14. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go Navy 10-6.
SMU at Memphis on ESPN2 is actually a decent game.
Mm-hmm.
They're both 8-2, and they're some of the better American teams. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'll go with Memphis because it's at home, 31-28. But this is a game that I definitely can see SMU winning. They don't look as good as they were before with Mordecai and everything. And some like the teams that they've had in the past. But
yeah,
I do
go
think
like 38.
Memphis will win.
I'll go 38-32 SMU.
Mm-hmm. SMU could win. You could be right. I mean, they definitely have still some good players, but Memphis being at home, it's a tough place to play, and both teams playing pretty well. So I'll go with the Tigers. That should be actually an underrated game. It's a game to watch for sure, especially if all the other games are blowouts in the noon window. App State James Madison. I think James Madison will win that one. I'll go 31-17. James Madison.
Yeah, I'll go 38-21.
Utah at Arizona. And why is this game on the Pac-12 network? Why? A top 25 battle you're going to put on the Pac-12 network. I don't understand you, Pac-12. If I had the network, I wouldn't even say anything, but no one has it. So it's insane that it is. But Utah is a team that their offense is inconsistent. Sometimes they play well on offense, aka the Arizona State game and the USC game, but it's, USC. And then other times they have performances like they did against UCLA and the Oregon State games, but they can't score. Arizona has been playing much better football than they were at the beginning of the season. Ever since they made the switch to Noah Fafita, they've been a much better offensive team. Their defense has been rallying, and it's at home. Their home atmosphere is pretty solid. They play much better at home. If Utah was a better road team and they had Cam Rising, I would go with them, but I will go with Arizona to beat Utah 35-27.
Yeah, I'll go 38-31 Arizona.
Should be a really good game. Definitely be keeping an eye on that one, but Utah is just not a good enough road team for me to pick them. West Virginia and Cincinnati on ESPN Plus. This is an interesting game because Cincinnati finally got a win, and they beat the team in Houston that West Virginia lost to. So that's kind of funny. But West Virginia, they lost to Oklahoma big. I do think they will bounce back at home. Country Roads will take care of them well. I'll go with the Mountaineers to beat Cincinnati 31-20.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati will they have some confidence, so I think they'll keep it close, 31-27.
Yeah, Neil Brown, I mean, if you lose this game, the hot seat's starting to heat up again. So don't lose, Neil Brown, if you want to stay on the right side of things. Duke at Virginia on the CW. Now, I know the CW curse is kind of null and void now because of the fact that NC State debunked it, but it is still something to monitor. Duke is a 4-point favorite, and they're not as good of a team now without, Riley Leonard and everything. You talk about the fact that ever since he's gotten injured, they just don't look as good. But in Virginia also was able to get that big win, over, North Carolina on the CW. So I do think that plays a role, Virginia possibly having some confidence if they're paying attention to that. But I do think since the CW curse got broken and Duke was competitive against North Carolina last week, I think that Duke will win over Virginia, probably something in the neighborhood of 31-20.
Virginia. Is Virginia the best 2-8 team in the country?
Just like Indiana's the best 3-7 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I still don't think they'll be good enough to beat Duke. I'll go. I think it'll be close because they always play teams close and lose. I'll go 27-24 Blue Devils.
You have a point, Will, about that with Virginia. They're not bad. I mean, they are definitely competitive and feisty. I mean, they almost beat NC State. They've had some close performances, even the Louisville game. So I don't know. They're not a terrible team. Jackson says the CW curse has gone woohoo. But yeah, I will go with Duke at the end of the day. Should be a decent game. Here we go. CBS, 3:30, Georgia at Tennessee. If only this was Tennessee of last year with Hendon Hooker and Hyatt and Tillman, then you would have an argument versus this Georgia team because it would be at home, and Tennessee was really good on offense last year. Problem is this is this year's Tennessee team, just like this year's Georgia team. And you're now playing Georgia with Brock Bowers back. So even this Georgia team is suddenly revamped and looking almost like last year's Georgia team, even though I still don't think they're as good. But that was an impressive one over Ole Miss. You are going on the road. Neyland's tough. But, man, Milton is not Hooker. And the receiving core isn't as good. Their defense is inconsistent. Last week's their defense was abysmal. 36-7 loss to Missouri. I mean, I do think Tennessee's going to be angry because of that performance against Mizzou, and I feel like they will bounce back and play better in this game, being backed by their home environment. But there's just no way in my mind that I can see Joe Milton playing a good enough football game to knock off Georgia, unless Georgia played absolutely abysmal football. And Georgia, like I said, getting Bowers back, their defense is going to probably rush Milton. Beck isn't perfect, but he has been playing a bit better. He played good last game. I'll go with Georgia to beat Tennessee 31-17.
I was actually going to go with alongside like Jason's argument. I'll go 38-10. I just think that Georgia's too good right now, and Tennessee is not playing well.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, 31-17, 2-touchdown win on the road is still an impressive win again in that environment. But yeah, you guys could be right. It could be a lot uglier. Wake Forest at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, you cannot let me down. Notre Dame, you have let me down a lot this year. I've picked you a lot. I've gone, not even just because of Will. There's been no influence from Will here. I've picked Notre Dame a lot because I legit thought with Sam Hartman and, the way that, he did at Wake Forest and him going over to Notre Dame, he was going to do so much better there. He can put up bigger stats and they're going to be really good. But they just underperformed somewhat this year. Not bad, but man, it's just very unfortunate for Fighting Irish fans. But now he's facing his old team in Wake Forest. And how is that going to impact this game? I just don't think Wake Forest is very good, though. If Wake Forest was better, then, they've been this season. They were more like last year's team, even without Sam Hartman. I would almost think about it, picking an upset, but it's not going to happen. If Notre Dame loses this game, that just means that they're not trying and they've thrown in the towel. Like they're not playing for a New Year's Six bowl game. They just don't care anymore. I would hope Notre Dame doesn't do that. So I will go with Notre Dame to beat Wake Forest 31-17. Again, like with the Georgia-Tennessee score, I think Notre Dame will win fairly comfortably. I want to pick them by more, but I just don't know how motivated Notre Dame's going to be here.
Can you look at Wake Forest's record for a second?
Yeah, I think they're like 4-6. I think, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, they're 4-6.
Okay.
And Notre Dame is favored by 24.5. It's a big spread, but how motivated will Notre Dame be?
Well, this is the last time I'm going to be able to watch Notre Dame on TV because their last game against Stanford's on the Pac-12 network. Which I'm like, come on, man. They're really putting us on the Pac-12 network. But I don't know. I'm hoping the Irish take care of business. I'm hoping we can see some Stephen Jelly and Kenny Minchie in the second half again. I'll go Irish big. I'll go 42-3.
Yeah, it could be that big of a blowout. I'm not sure, like I said, how good they're going to perform. It's going to be interesting. Illinois at Iowa. You had the infamous 9-6 game last year. The 9-6 game that Illinois won over Iowa. A little taste of Iowa's own medicine there, winning a close, low-scoring game. But see, Iowa this year, though, and this is why what I said in my Cade McNamara video when he got injured and was out for the year, I said it's not going to make a difference when it comes to how Iowa plays in the record this year. And it hasn't. Iowa is horrible on offense, but it doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter because their defense wins them games against these mediocre football teams. Illinois got to win over Indiana, and they're 5-5, and they're going to want to make a bowl. And I think they could win this game because Iowa's capable of losing every game with how bad their offense is. They could lose every single game. They literally win a lot of these games 10-7, 13-10, 17-14. So one little mistake, and they could lose a pick six, whatever, and it's over for Iowa. But I'm going to go with Iowa to beat Illinois 14-10 just because of the fact that Iowa is so good on defense, and I just don't know if Illinois is going to be able to replicate that offensive explosion that they had against Indiana. So I'll go with Iowa, but Iowa, again, with that offense, are capable of losing every game that they play.
Yeah. I'm going to go Iowa to win 10-3. I think they'll get a Cooper DeJean special teams play for the win. But it's going to be an ugly game. But, hey, Illinois, if they win out, they're going to the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, and you talk about the earlier comment. You talk about the earlier comment that Jason made when referring to Indiana. He says, hung with Illinois, and Illinois can go to the Big Ten championship. You can see, I stand corrected. Indiana's not lost to a bad football team this year. Boston College has, Northern Illinois. So there you go. Illinois, not a terrible team. The West is so bad, though. This game right here, I cannot wait for. And I wish North Carolina was undefeated. Why did you have to lose to Virginia and Georgia Tech? Your defense, you were this close to being undefeated in the top 10, but you blew it because of the defense. But Drake May still playing well. But you're going into Death Valley. Notre Dame couldn't do it. Notre Dame could not go to Death Valley and win. Can the Tar Heels do it? Man, this game, I've thought about long and hard about picking this game because I know Clemson's probably the more talented team on paper, and you see the FBI predictor 60.6% in favor of Clemson, and the spread is Clemson 6.5. So definitely people are high still on Clemson because of the talent, because of the home field advantage. But North Carolina's got the better quarterback. Drake May is better than Cade Klubnik right now. But Clemson's defense is more talented than North Carolina. I'm going to let you pick first, Will.
I just think that May's going to be running for his life with that D-line. I can't see it for the Tar Heels. I'm going 31-17 Tigers.
Jason said it would be cool to see UNC win in Death Valley. Clemson's struggling right now. This is a good time to get them. Yeah, like I said, I've gone back and forth. It is definitely 50-50 for me. One second I thought Clemson, next second I thought North Carolina. Clemson, again, more talented. Defensive line's really good. But Klubnik made some mistakes this year. He's been playing a bit better lately. But I think Drake May's going to have a big performance. I'm going to go with North Carolina to beat Clemson 31-28. I could be wrong. But I'm going to go with North Carolina to win at Clemson. That might be my upset pick of the week because it is an upset. It would be because they're a 7-point underdog, basically, even though they're ranked, and Clemson isn't. But I'll go with North Carolina. It should be a really good game. Death Valley is going to be rocking and rolling. And to Jason's point, this is about one of the best times North Carolina is going to have of being able to beat them in Death Valley. Got to take advantage of it when you can. Up next, and to Jackson's point, Chip Kelly's in big trouble. If UCLA lose, he's gone on Sunday. But if the Bruins win on Saturday night versus Calvin, Chip Kelly's the vote of confidence. So Jackson believes Chip Kelly is history as the Bruins head coach if he loses this game. Obviously, last week's loss to Arizona State was abysmal. UCLA is bowl eligible, though, right?
Check.
They're 6-4.
Okay.
And USC 7-4, and the favorite is USC by 7. So UCLA is bowl eligible, but still, that was a really, really bad loss. I mean, cannot lose to Arizona State. This is another game I've been 50-50 on because, I mean, USC's defense is so poor, they make any offense look good. So, I mean, UCLA can score probably in this game, even though they've been so bad. But I will say that whoever's been the third-string quarterback, Garbers, Dante Moore, their offense has not been that great. And USC's defense, I mean, this is like the bare minimum here. You're playing an offense that's really struggling. They put up 7 against Arizona State. Come on, USC. Get Caleb Williams a win. Can you do that? I'm going to go with USC to beat UCLA 38-28. I'm going to do the inverse how I had Oregon beating USC 38-28. I'll go with USC because I think UCLA's offense is struggling too much, and I believe USC will score more. But if USC loses this game, that would just be really bad.
I want to pick UCLA to be contrarian. I just can't. Their offense is that bad. I'm going 49-28 Trojans over the Bruins.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's going to be interesting for sure. Jason says, who would UCLA try to hire as a replacement for Chip Kelly? It's an interesting job. And then Jackson says, Laipo would be pretty good to get for UCLA. I think if Chip Kelly gets fired by UCLA, he should go to Boise State and become the new head coach.
I don't know if he would be I don't know if a guy from like him would want to go to LA. That seems like a weird fit.
Yeah, LA, it takes a certain type of person to be the head coach of a school like that. UCLA or USC. Yeah. Some people aren't fits there. That will be interesting to see for sure if Chip Kelly is fired. Definitely for sure. NC State at Virginia Tech.
Great game.
This is a good game, actually, on the ACC Network. Two decent football teams. Virginia Tech looks a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season. Since they switched from Grant Wells to Kyron Drones. The FBI predictor has it about even. Virginia Tech's favored by 2.5, so it's basically a pick'em game. I don't know. Virginia Tech's been weird, though. I feel like they've played better on the road sometimes. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's actually going to play a difference. They did have that one big win against Syracuse at home, but that's Syracuse. NC State's offense isn't that great, but they can play defense at times, and they're not a bad team. They have talent, but I'll go with Virginia Tech actually at home. I do think they'll win because of the home crowd, and they're one win away from making a bowl. I do believe they will win over NC State 28-24.
You stole mine. I was going to do that. Virginia Tech 28-24.
Great minds think alike, Jackson says.
Yeah, great minds think alike. Yeah, I think it'll be a good game, but I think Kyron Jones will just make a couple more plays than MJ Morris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John, one scoop. John's here. Really appreciate you for stopping by.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Jonathan Smith would be a pretty good get for UCLA. I don't know.
I could see that.
That would be interesting. Oregon State fans would be furious, though.
Well, he said if Oregon State doesn't join a Power 5 conference, he will leave.
They need to get to the Big 12. Big 12, make it happen. So next we've got Baylor at TCU.
Oh, man.
On ESPN Plus. And both these teams are not great, but TCU is 4-6. They could still make a bowl. Baylor's 3-7. I think that's going to be the difference in who plays harder in this one. I'll go with TCU to beat Baylor 31-21, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Baylor won because it's the Big 12. This year, the Big 12 is unpredictable.
I'm picking TCU just because they're at home. 31-28. I'll give it to the Frogs.
UNLV at Air Force.
Ooh.
On CBS Sports Net, Air Force is reeling. 2 straight losses after starting 8-0. They lost to Army, then they lost again last week to Hawaii. UNLV, 8-2 as well. Barry Odom hasn't playing good football. I mean, if this was 2 weeks ago, we would have both picked Air Force easily. Mm-hmm. But what's happened with Air Force? I mean, losing Army is one thing because you're playing a similar school, but Hawaii doesn't make any sense. I'll let you pick first here.
I'll go UNLV 28-27. I don't know. That's tough.
Man, it's so close. I've gone back and forth on this one. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with Air Force to get the bounce back. Okay. I'll go 28-27, right. Just like your score. I'll go 28-27 Air Force, and they'll bounce back. But I'm not confident in it because they've looked bad the last 2 weeks. But they played so well before. I think they'll bounce back. UNLV is a good team, but they haven't beaten too many good opponents. But who knows? Minnesota at Ohio State. This one's going to be over before half. It's at home. Minnesota's playing terribly on defense.
42-3 Buckeyes. Yeah,
I'll go with 49-10.
Mm-hmm. Arizona State maybe has a chance because Kenny Dillingham knows what Dan Lanning likes to do on defense, but I don't think so.
And it could be a look-ahead game. You talk about Michigan and Ohio State always looking at it. Oregon has to play Oregon State, after this. So they could overlook Arizona State a bit. And that is true with Kenny Dillingham knowing his former team. I think Oregon still should win in the desert, though. I mean, they're too talented on both sides of the ball to lose Arizona State. I know Arizona State beat UCLA, and they've had moments this year of playing decent football. Moments. And then they've also had moments where they get blitzed 55-3 to Utah. But I'll go with Oregon to win 38-2. I'll give Arizona State 20 just for the Kenny Dillingham connection and the fact that Oregon, it's prior to rivalry week. 38-20.
Mm-hmm. Oklahoma State, Houston. Cowboys should bounce back.
Should. Keyword should, but it's the Big 12. I'll go with Oklahoma State to beat Houston. I'll go with a score 28-14. I mean, Houston's been struggling on offense last couple of weeks after playing well in the middle of the season. Oklahoma State, I mean, they played so bad last week. I think they will bounce back, but you just never know.
Houston's offense is just that. Defense is just that bad. So I'll go 42-17. Oklahoma State.
Does Auburn have 5 wins? I think they do. No, Auburn at 6-4. Wow. So Auburn's already bowl eligible. And Auburn's favored in this game about 23.5, even though New Mexico State is actually decent at 8-3. I'll go with Auburn.
This
they're actually
would be
underratedly decent.
Underratedly decent. Could Jerry Kill do it? Could he kill off the Tigers? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I'll keep my eye on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go with Auburn to win 31-17.
Mm-hmm. I'll go Auburn. You know what? I'll make it close. 28-24 for the heck of it. Close game. I don't know. Probably not, but I'm hoping for it.
You never know. I mean, games like this get weird. You remember that South Carolina Jacksonville State game, the Gamecock Bowl, as you called it. You know, it was a close game. It was not a blowout, so you never know. This one could be close as well. Look at this FS2 game. Look at FS2 is what they put this one on. UCF at Texas Tech. What are you supposed to do here? Because UCF, you blew out Oklahoma State, but UCF also has played poorly against Cincinnati. They played poorly against Baylor. They also play well against Oklahoma. So they're weird. Texas Tech beat Kansas last week, and they hung tough with Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
But then they lost to Wyoming, and they've had some bad performances. I don't know. I'll let you pick first, man.
Can UCF make a bowl? Can you look?
I think both teams are still in the race there for that. I think both teams are 5-5, if I do believe. Yeah, 5-5 for UCF and 5-5 for Texas Tech, and the spread is Texas Tech by 2.5.
You know what? I'll pick UCF to win 38-35.
Yeah, I could go either way on this one. A lot of times I go with the home, field advantage because with teams that are similar, because, that's sometimes the difference. But I will go with UCF as well to win 31-28. I don't know. They've been okay. I mean, they've had moments of being okay, and that performance was very impressive last week. Maybe they're turning a corner. I mean, John Rice Plumlee, to be fair, has been injured some this season, and that has maybe affected his play. He played really well last week, to your point, so maybe that will carry over, and he'll get a win here and get to bowl eligibility. Marshall at South Alabama is decent.
Yeah.
That's actually a decent game. For Buckeye Mike, if he checks it out. Marshall's 5-5, South Alabama's 5-5, and South Alabama's favored by 10.5. Yeah, I'll go with South Alabama to win. Kane Womack, the former defensive coordinator for Indiana, I'll have him win that game 31-24.
Yeah, I'll go 38-28 USA.
Florida State's going to destroy North Alabama on the CW. Why is that on the CW? Two CW games.
Strikes again. If the curse strikes again, that would be crazy.
Oh man, if it struck there, that would be unreal. But I think Florida State will win 38-10. But that would be hilarious. Oh man, we got the play. Cal Stanford, the 41st anniversary of the play.
The big game. The big game.
What you got, man?
I'll go Bears 28-24.
See, with games like this, and you have that, the home field advantage will make it there. But Stanford don't have a home field advantage. There's no one there. That no one cares about the 41st anniversary of the play, unfortunately. And if I do believe Cal is still alive for a bowl game, because they're 4-6. Yes, they are 4-6. Stanford is 3-7. So if Cal only had to beat Auburn, if they could have beat Auburn in the non-conference, they'd be in great shape to make a bowl game. I do think since they are still alive for a bowl, that will be the difference. I'll go with Cal to beat Stanford 27-21.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they can beat UCLA. I could see it happen, especially with how bad the Bruins have been playing.
So they still can get there. California, Justin Wilcox. That'd be huge for him. Kansas State at Kansas. This is the Sunflower Showdown right here on FS1. So this is a game that I don't know what to really do with because Kansas was looking good, and then they blow it against Texas Tech. Maybe it was a look ahead to the rivalry week. I don't know. And then you got Kansas State. They've been playing better lately. They had a couple of rough performances earlier in the year, but then they almost beat Texas. They won last week. Will Howard's been inconsistent, but I think he's been back playing better. And then Kansas, Jason Bean, when he doesn't turn it over, actually plays well, but sometimes he's turnover prone. Jalen Daniels, I mean, I don't know if he'll come back. I don't even know his status or anything like that. It's at home. Don't burn me again, Kansas. I picked you last week and you lost to Tech, but I'll go with Kansas to win 31-30. I think it's going to be a close game. Jack said, I hope Bean recovers from his. So is he out too? If he's out, I'm not picking him. I retract my statement. Is he out too? Let's look. We gotta look this up real quick. Kansas
I'll look it
football.
up. I'll look it up.
I don't know.
I'll look it up. You can keep it on. Yeah.
I had no idea that he was injured. See, it's hard to keep up with every single injury.
Jason Bean leaves Texas Tech game with injury. Oh no.
But is he out for?
I'm looking it up.
Extended period of time, because that's
Very
key.
optimistic
I can't
that
pick him.
Bean will be playing on Saturday.
Optimistic. And Jalen Daniels is not coming back, I don't think. I guess. Yeah, the headline on him is it says Kansas football court Jalen Daniels is good days and not good days. So, yeah, it doesn't look like he's coming back. Being optimistic that he's going to return. I guess I'll still go with Kansas, 31-30, but that makes me less confident in the pick. If he was out, then I wouldn't pick him. See, it's tough because Jackson Liable says he's optimistic, but I'm not sure. Again, that doesn't help, though. I mean, if he's playing, I pick 31-30 Kansas. If he's not playing, I'm going Kansas State to win 38-24. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what are you going with? What do you think, Will? You going with Kansas State?
I'll go with Kansas State, 34-31.
I just don't know what to do here because, I mean, I don't want to contradict myself, and I always stick with my picks when I make them. Because, like I said, I'm not picking them if you don't play.
Cole Ballard is their third string, and he didn't do great well. So, yeah.
I'll just go with Kansas State since it's unsure. I can't do it. I'll just go because I did the same thing with Leonard in Louisville, and he wasn't healthy either. I'll just go with Kansas State 38-24. I want to go Kansas, but I can't pick them if it's not sure he's playing and he's not even going to be 100%. I can't do it. I didn't know he was injured because, like I said, can't keep up with everything. I'll go with Kansas State 38-24. Sorry, Jayhawks, but your quarterback situation's too rough. I'll go with Boise State to beat Utah State.
Yeah, they should win. Andy Avalos, I believe, just got
31-20.
fired. So they'll be with a new coach, Boise State.
They fired Avalos?
Yeah.
They actually, I didn't even know about that. I try to keep up with everything, man. Andy Avalos fired.
Yeah, I believe so.
Most recently served as head coach is alma mater. I mean, I understand it. Because, I mean, Boise State doesn't want to be mid. They don't want to be average. They want to be top of the conference like they were. So I understand the move. But you got to make sure that you hire – you got to make sure that you hire the right guy, man. You just can't keep hiring bad coaches. Sports Talk with Austin. Appreciate being here. Says Jeremy, don't tell you it's the wrong way, but North Carolina needs to lose. My Cardinals can clinch the spot in the championship game.
I thought you already – are you not already in it, Austin? I thought you were already in it.
If Louisville is good – and they are deserving of being in the ACC title game, then they need to beat Miami. So it doesn't matter what North Carolina does. If you beat Miami, you're in. So, no, I don't want North Carolina to lose to Clemson. How about they both win? How about you beat Miami and North Carolina beats Clemson? That's fair, right? That sounds great. Just beat Miami. That's all I got to do. So, you see, you're even nervous about it. You're nervous about Miami. You can't be nervous. You got to go in and you got to pound them if you have the confidence. So, yeah, that's funny, Austin. All right. So, Washington and Oregon State. This game right here is a game that is scary for Washington. And, Michael Penix, top, the Heisman race, win it in the Heisman. They're undefeated. They're in the playoff race. But going to Corvallis is a scary thing. They have a small stadium, but their fans are loud. They're raucous. DJ Uiagalelei has not been perfect, but Oregon State is a good rushing attack with Martinez on the ground. They've got a pretty decent defense, as you've mentioned tons of time this season, Will. They're not as good on defense as they were last year, and you're absolutely correct, but they're still decent. Washington's a great offensive team, but their defense isn't good enough for them to be a title contender, be able to win it all. And I think that's going to hurt them in this game. I think they're going to give up points. There's no way that they're not going to give up points in this game because Oregon State is too good of an offense and being at home that I think they will put up a lot of points on Washington. The key is that Washington's defense just needs to get enough stops, a stop or two, to be able to allow Michael Penix to get enough points up in yards through the air. And if they can get Dylan Johnson going on the ground, it's not going to be as easy as putting up 256 on the ground against USC. Oregon State's not going to allow Washington to run the football as well. I'm going to go with Washington to win 38-35. I almost picked Oregon State. I was this close, but I'm going to go with Washington to win in Corvallis. But, man, that is going to be a tough game for the Huskies, and I could easily see Oregon State winning.
What's the line at? I'm going to go 30. I want to go 42-31. Washington.
Oregon State's favored by 2.
Okay. I don't know, man. I trust Michael Penix a little more than DJ. So that's why I went with the Huskies 42-31.
I mean, it is the key. I mean, when you talk about the scoring in this game, Washington's defense just has to stop Oregon State enough, and then they have to score enough to win. That's just the way it is. So if Washington can get in the high 30s, I think they got it. But if they're, shut down a bit by Oregon State's defense and they're like in 28, 31 points, they could lose. So it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to this one for sure. Florida at Missouri on ESPN at 7:30. Florida, can they make a bowl game? Because this feels like, if they don't win this game or they're not at least competitive in this game, will they be able to fight against the rival, Florida State, in the last week of the regular season to get to 6 wins? Because I know that, rivalries, games, anything can happen. But if Florida loses this game by like 25 or something like that, they're not going to have a lot of motivation. And it's Florida anyway. And the players, a lot of those guys are like, well, we're, might opt out or we're not, even going to be excited about a mediocre bowl game. So Florida, they could just throw in the towel. I don't know. Missouri, they're playing for a New Year's Six. They're playing well. Brady Cook's having a great year. I'll go with Missouri to win 38-21.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little worse. I think it'll be 49-10, Missouri. I just think Florida's done again.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any path for Florida International to beat Arkansas?
I think it's – what's their record?
It's not good. I know Florida International was like 4-4 at one point. And they barely beat Sam Houston. They're 4-6. And their quarterback has 6 touchdowns and 7 picks.
Yeah,
Arkansas's favored by 30.
Arky will win by at least 21.
Yeah, it's not the best matchup. If they had New Mexico State, it could be a bit more interesting, but they don't. So, yeah, I'll go with Arkansas to win 31-10. Florida International is just not very good of an offensive team. Kentucky is South Carolina. Interesting
Kentucky
matchup.
should win. I'm going to go 24-17 Kentucky.
South Carolina's 4-6 though. Still alive
They're
for
not
a bowl
good.
game. If they beat
Kentucky's
Kentucky
better.
and Clemson, Kentucky's only favored by 1.5, man. And William Bryce Stadium's gonna be loud. The Gamecocks, the animal that shrieks like 100 times per game, it might affect Kentucky a little bit. I don't know, man. Kentucky, to me, is just not great. I think they are an average program that benefits from being in the East. That's why DeReal is worried about Kentucky once Oklahoma and Texas join and the divisions are scrapped, because Kentucky has benefited from being in the easier, division. I just don't think they're a great football team. The only thing that's going to save them here is Ray Davis. South Carolina's run defense hasn't been very good. Ray Davis might get a lot of yards in this one.
Yeah, I think he will.
I just don't think Kentucky's going to win by a lot, man. Kentucky's not great. I'll go with the Wildcats to win 31-24, but it's not going to be by a lot. NBC getting Nebraska at Wisconsin.
I think it's a 32-21. What a dog show. What two terrible teams playing
to put on NBC. And it's for bowl eligibility. Like the promo tonight on Monday Night Football, before this game was they were like 2 teams fighting for bowl eligibility. It's like, yeah, that's what you want to be talking about for your NBC promo. It's like, it's hilarious, man. Nebraska and Wisconsin are brands. They are brand schools, but Nebraska and Wisconsin are not having good seasons. They're both 5-5. Whoever wins is bowl eligible. Wisconsin, when healthy, was better than Nebraska, but they're banged up, and I don't know their health situation. I don't know if you know it either. Like, is Braylon Allen going to be back? Tanner Mordecai. Like, we just don't know. I mean, they're favored by 5.5, so the odds makers are high on them.
Too much.
Let's see what they did against who played against Northwestern. Real quick, Wisconsin. Oh, Mordecai was back. Ooh. But the running back was not. Braylon Allen was not, because the leading rusher was their third string. Mordecai returned, though, and he's 31 of 45 for 255. I don't know. Nebraska's been falling apart, and it just seems to me like the time of the year they just collapse. I don't think Matt Rule has gotten to the point where they're consistently good. I'll go with Wisconsin to win 21-20.
On the Big Ten show, I picked Nebraska, so I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go Nebraska to win 28-24.
You could be right. I mean, I almost went Nebraska, but, man, they really let me down last 2 weeks. They really did. And Wisconsin has as well. But, I don't know. Being at home, both teams are struggling. I think the Badgers might pull it out. Texas and Iowa State.
Yeah, I just can't see Nebraska beating Iowa next week or Wisconsin beating Minnesota next week. I just think those are guaranteed losses for both teams. So I think this one really is for bowl eligibility.
You could be right about that. I mean, definitely. It's going to be key for both teams. They need a win. I mean, I would think it's more likely Wisconsin can win next week's game than Nebraska, but you never know. But you could be right. This could be all she wrote for both teams. They have to win. Texas at Iowa State on Fox. Iowa State's weird. They are a weird team because some weeks they look like one of the better Big 12 teams, and in other weeks they don't play well. I mean, if you look at their schedule, they have some weird results this year. Obviously, they started out rough with the Iowa and Ohio losses, but then they beat Oklahoma State back when Oklahoma State was, beginning of the season, and they were not doing very well. But then you talk about, the rest of their schedule. After that, they lost to Oklahoma. Then they beat TCU, Cincinnati, and Baylor. Lost to Kansas, and then they floored BYU. So they're not bad. They're not a bad team, and they're 6-4. And Texas has been kind of struggling lately. They have not been playing like a title contender. I don't know. Being on the road, I think this is going to be a really close game. The spread is only Texas 7.5, so they're not favored by an astronomical amount. I think Jack Trice Stadium is going to be loud. I think Iowa State's going to really play hard in this game because they're going to believe they have a shot because Texas hasn't looked as good lately. But I will go with Texas to win 31-28. I think they'll survive and advance to stay in the playoff race, but it's not going to be by a lot.
Texas, this is where it's going to end. This is where the Texas playoff hopes, they will go to Jack Trice Stadium and they will die. I'm going horns down. I'm going Iowa State 35, Texas 28. Season over, Texas. You're not back. You can come back again next year, and say you're back when you're going to be in the SEC, and then you're going to go 7-5, and then Sark's going to get fired. That's what's going to happen.
Man,
Texas.
You're being more brutal to Texas than I was to Boston College.
Yeah.
I mean, you were brave. You were brave to pick Iowa State. I almost did. I wasn't this close, but I went with Texas. But you could be right. You definitely could be right. LSU and Georgia State on ESPN2. It always feels like LSU gets one of these games against a small opponent on ESPN2. Like they played UAB a couple years ago on ESPN2. I don't get that, but LSU should win big. I'll go with the Tigers to win 49-17.
Yeah, I'll go 52-zip LSU.
I just like Will you hate Texas?
A hard time because they're always like, we're back, and then.
Well, it's like Miami, but I think with Texas, it's more legit because they actually appear like sometimes they're bad, but then they're not. Syracuse and Georgia Tech on ACC
The battle for
Network.
bowl eligibility. One of these teams will be making a bowl. They're both 5-5.
But see, look at this though. When you look at this shows you who's better. Syracuse is 1-5 in the conference, right there. Look at Georgia Tech, 4-3. So Georgia Tech's better, and Georgia Tech has to win because they got Georgia next week. So Georgia Tech, you have to win to make a bowl. You're favored by 6.5. Do not let your fan base down. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech to beat Syracuse 28-17. You got to win, Georgia Tech. If you do not, your bowl chances are history.
Yeah, I think they're so Jekyll and Hyde. They're so Jekyll and Hyde. If they show up, they'll win.
Yes.
Hopefully, for Sea-Dog's sake, Georgia Tech will win. I'm going 38-28 Georgia Tech. Don't blow it.
If I'm Brent Key, though, I'm talking to my team, and I know that every single, game is important, and I know that coaches tell their team, we have a shot, don't get on the bus if you don't believe we can win, all that kind of stuff. I understand that. But if you're Brent Key, if I was Brent Key, this is what I would be telling my team. We have absolutely no chance to beat Georgia. If you want to make a bowl game, you got to win this week against Syracuse. I mean, I wouldn't say it like that because, again, you can't tell your team you have no chance. But you know what I'm saying, though. They're going to get destroyed by Georgia. You got to win this week. There's no margin for error. You're 5-5. You're 1 win away from bowl eligibility, and you're a better team than Syracuse. Get it done. Jackson could be right. Dino Babers, his seat is hotter than ever, and the Q's collapse every year. And I mean, the thing is, with how easy their schedule was, they should have been bowl eligible. They should have beat Boston College. Like, if you got to admit, Will, I don't know if you agree with this, but if Garrett Schrader was healthy for that Boston College game, I think Syracuse wins that.
Maybe
it was 17-10.
Yes.
Jack Del Rio was 7 of 18 for 37 yards and 4 picks. Garrett Schrader against Purdue, he ran for like $150 on the ground, and he had like 190 passing yards and a couple touchdowns. Yeah, I think that Syracuse would have beaten Boston College with Garrett Schrader, a healthy Garrett Schrader. So yeah, that Boston College, you're lucky. Jack Del Rio gave you 4 picks and 38 lovely passing yards. All right, next game, New Mexico at Fresno State on FS1.
Fresno will bounce back.
Fresno State should win. I'll go with them to win because they're at home, 38-17. Even if Michael King's not playing.
Yeah, I'll go 35-14. San Jose State should beat San Diego State.
Yeah, I saw too. Brady Hoke is retiring after this season. He is not coaching the Aztecs after this year because they're 3-7. I guess he's just calling it quits. San Jose State's 5-5. They can make a bowl game if they win. I'm with you. I think they'll win 28-20.
Well. All right. Another fun night with me and Jeffrey. Thanks for coming on, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody for being here. It was a lot of fun and cannot wait for the games.
Thanks for coming on, everyone.